The next thing that I want to talk about is audio rate modulation. Now, what is it? It is a technique that you can use to change the audio rate, the frequency, or in other words, the perceived note of the sound. And you can use amplitude modulation, ring modulation, and frequency modulation to achieve this. And in this example, in this video, I want to talk about ring modulation and frequency modulation mainly because amplitude modulation is, well, basically sounds very, very similar to ring modulation. The technique behind that and the science behind that is very different, but the end result is very similar. So let's start with ring modulation. Now, ring modulation, as I told you, it is very similar to amplitude modulation, and amplitude modulation is basically just an LFO dragging the volume up and down, like a vibrato effect basically. You can make amplitude modulation with very different tools, and ring modulation is a little trickier. And you can use, for example, serum FX for that. So let's call serum FX. And we have a filter in serum FX, in serum, that is called ring modulation. Ring mod. Okay. So this is how it sounds.
I'm a dragon. 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 I'm a dragon.
So as you can hear, as I'm tweaking the cutoff, it basically feels that the frequency of this voice is on a whole new level. So it is a lot deeper and a lot more gigantic, like if it was a huge monster or something like that. Now, obviously, this sound is a little unnatural because the ring modulation frequency does not follow the frequency change of my voice. Now, you can do it manually. So this envelope is already open. So just try to, draw in some sort of things that follows the pitch differences of my voice.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
And if you select the whole thing, you can push it up.
I'm a dragon. 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 I'm a dragon.
So this is one thing, and there is another tool that I love, and it is actually a commercial device, Max for Live device, but honestly, I really love this because it offers a little more than Serum FX. For example, you can choose different waveforms for the ring modulation, and don't forget that this is basically an LFO dragging the amplitude up and down. Now, this is not ring modulation, this is amplitude modulation, but as I told you, the result is very, very similar. And in this device, you can choose the waveform for the LFO. So it can produce really, really nice results. And this is why I prefer to use this. Now, this is $3, very, very cheap. And actually, I love to use that. So you can do the same thing.
I'm a dragon. 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 I'm a dragon.
And if you choose different waveforms, for example, triangle,
I'm a dragon.
With a square, it will just turn insane.
I'm a dragon.
Not very pleasing, especially not the saw.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
But on higher frequencies, it can be interesting, for example, robotic voices.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
Okay, so this is one thing. The next thing that I want to talk about is frequency modulation. So how can we frequency modulate this thing, this voice that I just recorded? Now, there is one tool that I really love to use is FM8FX. Now, it is a commercial plugin that it is not very cheap, honestly. So you need to buy FM8 for that. But it is so cool. I honestly never heard and never met any similar thing that can make the same thing. Let me show you how to do that. So FM8FX, and basically this is only an insert FX, so you can't produce sound with that. And if you start playing my voice, you don't have any sound. And this is a common bug in FM8FX. How to call this back to life is to choose a preset. And obviously you don't want any effects, just a pure voice. And
I'm
so
I'm
This is weird, but this is how you can get this thing to life. Now, what you want to do here is go to the expert tab and, modulate my voice with a sine wave basically by simply routing operator F, which is a sine wave on ratio 1 to the in signal that you can see on the master tab. So the input, you can see that it receives the input signal and actually produces output too. But we don't hear any effects.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
And that is because, FM8FX needs to receive MIDI information to play a note, to play operator F. And because my voice is on an audio channel, it is a little tricky to do, but let me show you the easiest thing. Create a new MIDI channel and set the output to low. This is the channel's name, to low. We can choose either Serum FX or FM8FX, and now obviously I want to use FM8FX. And now, if I place a MIDI note inside of the MIDI clip, for example on F0, you will be able to hear a nice or more like annoying effect on my voice.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
Now from this point you can start playing with the waveforms.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
You can add different operators to modulate operator F.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
And what I love to do is add voices to the unison. So for example, 8 voices of unison, detuning it heavily and giving 8 voices on the polyphony is essential. So now it sounds very, very fat, but I think it will be a little too loud, so pull it back.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
So as you can see, the possibilities are endless. Even you can go to the FX, chorus delay, not the chorus delay, the psych delay, or how it is called, pull back the time, and the feedback. And from this point, you can play around with the pitch, because as you can see, you can pitch the delay. So this will add another lower layer or even higher layer. It depends on you, what you want to achieve. But this is, again, really, really great.
I'm a dragon. 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 I'm a dragon.
So this is the commercial way. And let me show you a free way. So for that I need another MIDI track, and let's drop Ableton sampler, or if you don't use Ableton, you can use, for example, Contact. But right now let me use sampler in Ableton. Let's drop my voice here on C3, because that will play it back on its original note. I'm a dragon. Okay, but let's add some volume to it. I'm a dragon. And we don't need a filter. Okay, so if you go to the pitch tab and click on the oscillator, you can play around with some FM thing again. So as you can see here, we can choose the waveform. Let's go with the sine on course 1, which means that the input note is going to be multiplied by 1. So if you want, you can go 2, 3, and you can play around with these settings for your own taste. And if you start increasing the volume,
I'm a dragon. 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 I'm a dragon.
You can achieve basically the same result. Now this is a little different, and it is a little harder to play around with the frequency modulation node, so the frequency modulation rate basically. So you can't really change that, except if you play around with the fine or with the coarse. But this is not the best thing to do, but it's free and you can create really nice results with that. So this is the free alternative. Let me delete that and go back to FM8FX. Now, as you can see, we use only one note, and this is a little tricky and not very pleasing, not very accurate, because everybody who talks has pitch differences between the words. And obviously we want to follow that with the FM modulation. So how to extract these pitch differences from the voice? Now, the best thing to do that with Melodyne, or again, a free method could be right-clicking on the audio and convert melody to MIDI track. Okay, and once you have that, you can drop it here into the MIDI track. You know, this track, this MIDI clip controls the frequency modulation. So I already did that. Let me go to desktop, and here is the MIDI for my voice pitch movement.
I'm a dragon.
Now this is not very accurate, it should be a lot lower.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
Now this sounds a little weird now, of course, but if you tweak around with FM8FX and other processes on the sound, it can sound really great and you can achieve very, very nice sounds. For example, Venom's voice was made using either ring modulation or frequency modulation. I already made a video about it on my YouTube. Okay, so this was audio rate modulation for voices, for basically crazy twisted effects on voices. And in the next video, we are going forward, finding new stuff to transform our sound and our voice. Okay, so before we are going to use this Granulator 2 instrument a lot in this course, I want to briefly demonstrate it and briefly describe what it does and how it works. So for that, let me drop an audio file, for example, this bass. Nice neuro bass. And basically what a Granulator instrument does is takes a small piece of audio and you can drag it back and forth and you can apply different behaviors, different effects on it. So the size of the grain can be set by here. So if I start playing this on my keyboard, it sounds like this. And obviously the coolest thing you can do here is take the file position and drag it back and forth. Now this is the two most important thing that you want to use in this Granulator instrument. But before we go forward, the button that you want to click the most here is this button where you can switch between the filter section and the grain section. So this is important because when I first loaded this instrument, I was like, why do I have this release? So I was in this view. So I don't want this release. And I was never able to just find a place where I can kill it. But if you click on it, you can find the amplitude envelope and pull back the release. So right now, we don't have any release. So this is important, but right now let's go back to the grain. So basically the first step, what you want to do is set the grain length that I just did, but it is more important to find a relatively smooth playback. Now the next thing is the spray, where you basically set some randomization to the grains. Let me demonstrate it. So as you can see, it jumps out back and forth from in and out from this grain section and tries to randomize the playback of the grains. You don't want to go very crazy with this because it creates a random muddy sound to it. So I'm not a big fan of that, but definitely add a little to it to add more life to the sound. Okay, we have an LFO that you can use to, you know what an LFO does, you can apply different things to it that you want to automate. For example, when you click on the LFO, you can see this button is turning on, so you can apply the grain size to the LFO. Right now, let me do that. And the LFO drags up and down the grain size. So if I crank up the speed, we can have this effect. Now I'm not a big fan of that, but you can do the same with the file position. Okay, now you know what an NFO does. We don't need to talk about this too much. And then we have the scan, which basically behaves like an envelope. So with the time, you can set how fast you want to go from the starting position, you know, from the file position to the end of the file. And with the curve, you can set the shape of this envelope. Okay, and of course, you can set how far you want to go. And this piping is another sort of envelope behavior to the sound. Okay, you can use amplitude modulation with this knob. And you can use live input here to add some more effects to this sound. It's a nice feature to have, but honestly, I never use it. Okay, let's talk about the key, which basically is a pitch tracker. So what it does with the grain, for example, if you turn it off, you can see that if I play C2 on my keyboard, okay, let me disable the scan and the envelope and the AM. So I have the same grain size, even if I go up on my keyboard. But if I turn on the key, so the pitch tracker, what it does, it will set the grain size to a different value when I'm on a lower or on a higher note on my keyboard. So let me demonstrate. So now I'm C2. It's pretty slow now, so yeah, you can hear the da-da-da-da-da. But on a higher note. So this is how the key tracker works. It modulates the parameter based on the key that you are playing on your keyboard. So the same thing with the file position, etc. You can add some randomization to it. And the spread is basically a unison mode to the granulator. So it can create some nice wide sound. Now let's switch to the filter. You can have the regular amplitude envelope, adding some attack, decay, sustain, release time. I'm sure that all these things are clear for you. You can set the pitch of the sound. You can add frequency modulation, where you can set the modulator frequency and the amount of FM. So let me demonstrate it for you, because I guess most of you guys don't really know what FM does. Frequency modulates the sound. So with this knob, I add the FM itself by setting the amounts. So this is the FM, and based on the frequency, it has a really different sound. This can be an interesting sound for especially metallic sounds. Okay, we have two filters. You can set from different filter types, and a filter envelope that also can be used as an FM envelope. So as you can see, I can send the FM to this envelope. So with this envelope will not only modulate the filters, but the FM too. But I'm pulling it back now because I don't really need that. Okay, so as you can see, you can do a lot of things with this granulator, and it is a very, very cool instrument. And the best thing that it is free. So you can download it from the developer's site and now go and experiment a lot with that. Okay, so Krotos Audio Simple Monsters is a really nice plugin because it offers a nice range of effects that you can, add to your sound, add to your voice. And to demonstrate what it does, I recorded this little thing here.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
Okay, so this is my voice. And on the plugin, you can see several sliders. And these are basically combined effects, or sort of combined effects that you can add to your sound. And you can also layer it up with another sound that you can switch and that you can see here. So there are several presets, several pre-recording things that you can add as a simple layer. So when you want to deactivate it, just click on solo sample playback. So basically this way you only hear the extra layer. But I don't want that. I just want to hear my voice. So I don't want to layer it with anything. And this is why I pulled back this sample playback level here. So with that, you just kill the extra layer. Okay, so let's analyze the interface because it is very, very simple. And this is why it is called Simple Monsters, because it is very, very simple to, tweak your sound into like a monster or a dragon sound or anything like that. So the first thing, the size. Let me show it first.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
Okay, so you may think that this is a transposition effect, but what it does is a granular synthesis. So how do I know? Well, basically I hear it, because what granular synthesis does is it slices up your audio into very small pieces, very tiny pieces, so-called grains, and then the synthesizer tweaks only those grains, so not the whole sound, not the whole recordings, but only those little tiny grains basically. And for example, you can add effects to those grains, you can tweak the transposition of those grains, you can even stretch those grains, and you can do huge things with granular synthesis. And this is the most important thing for me, at least, when you want to make monster sounds or very twisted sounds. And the size slider does exactly like that. So it is a granular synthesis kind of thing, and basically what you do with that is you set the transposition of the grains, so not the whole sound, not on the whole sound, but on the grains, and this is why it produces a really nice bubbly kind of sound. When you hear that the whole sound is not very even, not very stretched, but more like little choppy. And this can be really nice when you want to make monster sounds, those really aggressive and growly sounds. So this is why the size slider is awesome to have, because with granular synthesis, you can create that monstery kind of sound very, very easily. Now the age is the opposite, because basically it is simple transposition. So let me demonstrate it again.
Don't hesitate.
So this is my original voice. And if I play with the age,
don't hesitate. Kill them all.
We can easily test it, because if I tweak the transposition in Ableton,
don't hesitate. Kill them all.
We can have the exact same effect like we have in Simple Monsters.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
Okay, so as you saw, the age is a simple transposition effect, and the size is a granular effect. Now, what is furry then?
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
For me, it sounds like a simple EQ at around, I don't know, like 3K or something like that, and some delay, reverby kind of effect. For me, it sounds very similar to what you have in Serum FX, and that is called the Dimension Expander with some EQ. So let me try to replicate this effect with Serum Effects, and that is a really crazy plugin. I love to use that. So once again,
don't hesitate. Kill. Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate.
So it creates a little washed out effect. And that is what I want to replicate. So we have this dimension expander. We don't need a hyper, but crank up the mix. And with the size, you can set the delay effect. This is not a regular delay, but more like a combination of delay and reverb.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate.
And maybe we can add the chorus effect to it too.
Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate.
But I want to decrease the depth and the delay time.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
Something like that. And if you add an equalizer at around 3K.
Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
We can have a similar effect.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
Okay, so the furry is a combination effect of an EQ and some extra reverby delay kind of washed out effect. And this effect can be very handy if you want to create those typical monster sounds or even dragon sounds that you would, combine the sound with some huge noises, because the monster itself has huge skull with huge nose, exhaling and inhaling very heavily and very loud. So for that typical sound, the furry slider can be very handy. So the next thing is the wildness, and that is again a very simple thing. It's just a vibrato effect. And what is a vibrato effect? It's basically an LFO dragging the pitch up and down. And again, it is very, very simple to replicate for example, in a sampler, where you activate the LFO dragging the pitch up and down. So let me show it to you.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
So it's a very crazy pitch LFO on the sound, but in several circumstances, it can be really, really handy. The next slider is the character slider.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
For me, it sounds like a vocoder with a noise modulator, a noise carrier. So for that, we need a vocoder to replicate this effect. And from the carrier mode, you can choose noise. And this is what it creates.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
Now, obviously, it sounds a little different with too much high end. And you can set the band, for example, to 12.
Don't hesitate.
Or even go higher.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate.
And what it also offers is a chorus effect to wash out the whole sound.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. 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 Don't hesitate. 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 Don't hesitate.
So as you can see, you can play around with this vocoder really nicely to achieve very different sounds. But basically, the character in Simple Monsters is a sort of vocoder kind of thing on a noise with some chorus effect. Now, as you saw, I offered and I showed you several alternatives for these effects that Simple Monsters offers, but I didn't do for only one thing, and that was for the size. So let me delete all these things. And I have a very, very nice free plugin that can create awesome granular synthesis on your sound, basically on every input. And that is called, well, I don't know how to pronounce it, Argot Lunar, something like that. And it's just crazy. So let me demonstrate it for you.
Don't hesitate.
You can already hear that it chops up the sound into several pieces, several little grains.
Don't hesitate.
You can set the grains to 20.
Don't hesitate.
And with the transposition, you can create basically the same effect that you can do in Simple Monsters size. Okay?
Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate.
And the cool thing in this that it offers a lot more. So you can add delay for the grains.
Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
can set the space between those grains with the IoT. It's not a very pleasing effect, but in some circumstances it can be great. You can set the duration, the length of the grains. So basically you are time stretching the grains. So this already gives a huge result to your sound, and it is a free plugin.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate.
And it offers even a lot more. You can set the amplitude, the pan. You can add a filter, for example, like a band pass filter.
Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate.
So it is a really, really great plugin. And you can do several other things if you want to go tonal. So these are, of course, untonal effects that it creates on the sound. But if you want to go chronal, you can set the scale and you can do crazy things. But basically all you need to know is this part here, the delay, the IoT, the duration, and the transposition. And also you can add the glissando to it.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
So basically what it offers is the same that you had with the Wild. So it's just LFO dragging the pitch up and down. Also, it is very, very suitable for the goal that you are watching this video for, is to create monster sounds.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. Don't hesitate.
So, for example, if you add the vocoder after that, it's just basically instant awesomeness.
Don't hesitate. Kill them all. 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 Don't hesitate. Kill them all.
So, awesome. So this was the Simple Monsters. And as you can see, it's a really nice plugin. It is not very expensive and it's very easy to create awesome results with that. So for instance, results, I highly recommend you to check this plugin. But if you want more, you can replicate these effects with the Ableton effect and with this Argot Lunar VST kind of thing. I will drop the link for it under the video, okay? And in the next video, we are going to check the other Krotos effect, the other Krotos VST, the Dehumanizer 2. Okay, now let's talk about another commercial plugin, but this time the Dehumanizer. Now this is the big brother of the previous plugin, the Simple Monsters, but this one offers a lot more. So a lot more effects, a lot more flexibility. So basically you can tweak those effects, you can layer those effects and create custom changes in the way you want and as you want really. Here you can see the effects. So we have ring modulation, pitch shifting, noise generator, etc. Lots of stuff. We are going to check them one by one soon. But first you need to know that if you drag them here, you can connect them in the way you want. And this is called node base editor. So it is very, very flexible. You can create awesome and very complex chains to make your own sound basically based on these effects. So it is very, very simple to understand that these are node-based editings. So everything between the track input and the output generates your sound or affects your sound. Now for demonstration purposes, I recorded this audio, test audio, test audio, test audio. Okay, so let's start with the ring modulator. Now actually this is a very advanced ring modulator here because honestly, I've never seen any similar to this in any other DAW. So a ring modulator sounds very, very similar to an amplitude modulation, which is basically an LFO dragging the volume up and down, back and forth, creating a tremolo effect. So this is how it sounds now.
Test audio. Test audio.
So if you tweak the rate, which is basically the speed of the LFO.
Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio.
You can create this monkey, chipmunky kind of effect. And with the depth, you can decide how drastic you want that effect on the chipmunk.
Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio.
Test audio. Test audio. Which is basically the mix as I can hear now. Okay, now the coolest thing in this ring modulation is you can select the waveform of the ring modulation, because as I told you, ring modulation, the sound it creates is very, very similar to amplitude modulation, which is an LFO dragging the volume up and down. With this ring modulator, you can set the waveform of the LFO, which creates very, very different sound on every different waveform.
Test audio. Test audio.
So my favorite is this saw wave.
Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio.
Very, very nice thing. And you can blend it with another ring modulation.
Test audio.
And also you can apply an LFO on the ring modulation. Which sounds like a pitch modulation. Actually, this is a really, really nice ring modulation. Unfortunately, the one we have in Ableton under the name of frequency shifter is not this advanced, but it is very nice. The only thing that I miss from this ring modulation, if you click on ring in the frequency modulation, in the frequency shifter plugin, you can switch to ring modulation. So what I miss here is the waveform here, because you know, it generates a very, very different sound. But we can replicate this sound in Ableton pretty accurately. Okay, so this is the ring modulation. The pitch shifting is very simple again. Just pull back the transpose and basically you have the same thing. But don't forget to set it to Complex Pro and pull back the formants, otherwise you won't get that very deep sound, the very evil tone.
Test audio. Test audio.
So this is what we get when we use Ableton transposition, and with the dehumanizer, this is too much, so let's pull it back with several semitones.
Test audio. Test audio. Test audio.
So it's basically pretty much the same. We have a noise generator. For me, it is very, very similar that we saw previously in the Simple Monsters under the character slider. And I told you that this, I think that is a vocoder with a noise carrier. And basically this is the same.
Test audio. 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 Test audio.
Granular synthesis is what I would say the most important part when you want to create monster sounds and very twisted sounds. And what granular synthesis does is, I stated that in the previous video with the Simple Monsters, is chops off the sound, it chops up the sound into very small pieces. And you know, granular synthesizer or granular effects applies different effects, different processes on those little grains. So for example, pitch or pitch modulation, pitch variation or delay, and any effects basically. Now this is a very basic granular synthesis here, but you can go crazy with that and create very nice and organic sounds. So when you process this kind of vocals and effects to create those twisted kind of things, you really want to stay organic and not robotic, because that is a really different area. But with monsters, you want to stay organic, and granular synthesis is the best tool for that. So what I want to show you guys is this thing, you know, just tweaking the grain pitch, which basically only a transposition, but it does not transpose the whole sound, but only the grains. And based on your settings, it can create very different results.
Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio.
Now crank up the variation.
Test audio. Test audio.
Test audio. Test audio.
If you tweak the grain size, you will get rid of those choppy sound.
Test audio. Test audio.
and you turn into a more noisy, washed out sound. And with the voices, you can set the grain numbers. Okay, you can play around with the density and the variation of the density. Okay, so this granular thing is very handy, but also very basic at the same time, because you can replicate this and you can do even more with the Argot Lunar effect that, I just showed you in the previous video. So this is a crazy good and free plugin to do granular effects. Now, sample trigger is basically what it says, just triggers a sample, so you can drop in your own sounds and just play it back on top of your sound. So it works as a layer. It can be handy, but it's very basic again. Now, flanger and the chorus is again a very, very basic flanger chorus effect. It can be cool to add those metallic, robotic kind of sounds. We will discover this in later videos, but right now it is very basic. I don't want to talk about too much. The delay pitch shift is an interesting effect because it's basically a pitch shifter and a delay effect. So you can transpose your sound, your voice, and then you can add a delay, a regular delay. So here you can transpose your sound with octaves, semitones, and cents, and you can set the delay time and the feedback on the delay. Now, the scrubbing convolution. Oops, I only need one instance. The scrubbing convolution is an interesting thing to have, because what convolution does is takes a sample, it can be anything, and obviously you want to have like animal voices, and it tries to match the sound of that with your voice or with the sound that you just dropped into your DAW. For example, in this case, it is my voice, and it is used previously in reverbs, convolution reverbs, when they want to have the sound of a place, for example, a big hall. They recorded something in that big hall, for example, a clap, and use it up as an impulse response for the algorithm to create a reverb. Or in this case, a very nice and very unique effect on your voice. This is called scrubbing convolution, but you can use regular convolution reverb, for example, that you can find in Max for Live. So if you go to Max Audio Effects, you can have your convolution reverb, and you can drop your own sounds, your own bass sounds, or own recorded animal voices or anything like that. And you can play around with the settings, just crank up the mix so you have the full effect on your sound, and it can create really awesome and really unique sounds. And also what you can do is take Trash 2, and it has a convolution, a convolve module also that you can use for the same purpose. Basically, all you need to do is go to, disable trash, go to convolve and load your own sounds, even a grow sound or anything like that, and it will just use it as an impulse response and tries to create those very twisted and very cool sounds. So this is what you can do here too. So let me show it to you how it will sound after the whole stuff. It can be interesting after a pitch shifter. So let's connect these nodes in this chain. So this is an interesting effect, for example, to animal voices, animal sounds. And we have a spectral shifting. Now, this is the only effect that I was not able to replicate with any other effect in Ableton, or I didn't find any similar VST that would do that. Because the spectral shifting is basically a frequency shifter, very similar that you can see here in Ableton, so frequency shifter, but it uses frequency shifting on a certain spectral range. But it does not sound similar to multi-band effecting, multi-band frequency shifting. It is somehow very different. So let me demonstrate it for you.
Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio.
So as you can see with these bars or these faders, you can set the range, the spectral range for the effect. And honestly, I don't know what it does, and the manual is very shy about that too. So basically, it's a frequency shifting on a certain band range, but in a very special and very unique way. So this is why I didn't find any similar thing that would do the same effect. This is a very nice and unique thing, for example, to robot voices.
Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio.
I love these artifacts, and honestly, I heard these artifacts when we compress MP3. So it creates the same exact artifacts. And last, we have a vocoder. And this is basically a simple vocoder. And honestly, for example, Ableton's built-in vocoder is a lot better for vocoding purposes because this thing only supports simple waveforms like PVM, sine, etc. So let me show it to you again.
Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio. Test audio.
So very regular effects, not very interesting, but you can do that if you are after very simple robotic and old school robotic sounds. The vocoder effect in the dehumanizer can come really handy. So these are the effects, and as you can see, you can do a lot here between the track input and the track output, creating huge chains. And the rest of the stuff is very basic. So as you can see, you can use a EQ and a limiter here, and basically a compressor, and that's all here. So if you are after instant and very compact results on your processes, the dehumanizer can be really handy for you. But if you don't want to do that, you can follow this course and we will create awesome, cool sounds with mostly free effects and free tools if you have, for example, Ableton. Okay, this is going to be a really simple technique, but at the same time very effective to create smaller kind of demonic kind of sounds. Okay, so let me record one very short sentence. I am mysterious. So as I told you before, this is going to be, well, smaller kind of monster sound. So let me group this and put a limiter on that, so I don't want to clip our sound. Okay, so first of all, you need to go to clip mode and set everything to Complex Pro or even Complex, because we don't want to compensate with the performance. So right now, yeah, all of them are in Complex. So you have the main thing, I am mysterious. Okay, and let's use one instance a little higher. I am mysterious. This is already a little more demonic. I am mysterious. So about 6 semitones higher, and put the second one lower. I am mysterious. I am mysterious. But to make it better, please always remove the top end from the extra layers, okay? So you don't want to conflict with the tops. Because it will be very obvious that you use layers. I am mysterious. I am mysterious. Okay, and even more on the lower layer.
I am mysterious. I am mysterious.
Because the S, the siblings there are a little more distorted. I am mysterious. I am mysterious. And if you are very advanced, you can use a de-esser to remove those siblings. I am mysterious. But I'm not going to use that, but instead let's push again Argot Lunar onto the group. I am mysterious. 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 So this gives some little flangy kind of effect to it, but it is not a flanger. And this is the good thing here, that you are not using flanger, which is again very obvious to the ear. But this Argot Lunar thing, as it chops up the audio, it creates some fades between the grains. and that creates an interesting result. And from this point, of course, you can play again with the transposition if you want, because you know we are talking about smaller kind of monsters that probably have a little higher tones. I'm cranking the transposition out to 3 semitones.
I am mysterious. I am mysterious. I am mysterious.
Or even you can go lower and you can try the glissando also.
I am mysterious. I am mysterious. I am mysterious. I am mysterious.
Yeah, this is a really, really nice sound. So this is how you use layers to create this kind of weird monster sounds, smaller type of monster sounds. Okay, so you love making creature sounds, right? But in the previous videos, we made a lot of creature sounds, for example, with those dragon sounds. So you can use the same technique to create creature sounds if you want to go with evil, dangerous and big animal sounds. But what if you want to grab the brighter side of these creatures? For example, like, I don't know, like bird sounds or even the Star Wars kind of sounds, you know, where those little smaller kind of things. Now, you can go up to YouTube and record lots of bird sounds. I mean, birds can have very weird sounds and very unusual, very unexpected sounds. So let's record them. And this is what I recorded them so far. So these are all bird sounds. Now what I want to do is go to Max for Live, and we have a very nice instrument that we already use a lot. So that is called granulator, and drop it here. Now I want to group it, and I want to set the file position. I mean, I want to map the file position to a macro, but let's make the grains a lot shorter. And we don't need, of course, the release time. So this is what we always do. Okay, and for me, it's a lot easier to map the macro to my MIDI controller, and I can go through of the sound. So this is already a really nice bird sounds or maybe smaller creature sounds. And to make it a little brighter, let me add a multi-band compression. So this will make our sound a little brighter. But I want to drop it into the group so I can save it to you for later. And an EQ8 to make it even brighter. You know, let's use this high boost EQ. Okay, and the coolest part in this is we have FM. And we can map it to the file position, I mean to the first macro. But let's be, oops, not the frequency modulation, sorry, I want to keep it static. So this is the amount of frequency modulation basically, but I want to tweak the frequency. And what I want to do is narrow it, so I don't want to go very crazy with that. So for example, from 10 to, I don't know, like 70, or maybe we can go higher. So let's 50, we will see. Okay, so yeah, 200 is too much, so let's pull it back to about 100. Okay, this is one thing. If you want, you can add more to it. But I don't suggest it. Keep it at a very birdy sound. And let's go back again to Max for Live and let's add ring modulation and do the same. Map to macro 1 and set the range to about 20 to 50. So we have frequency modulation and now we have ring modulation, and all together I think it gives a very nice sound. So this can be a very nice thing to create smaller and funnier creature sounds, okay? Of course, what you can do is record your own voice, something like that. And let's drop it here instead, but let me duplicate it. Maybe this is the best for our goals. This is interesting, like a pig. Okay, so very nice creature kind of things that you can use up in anywhere basically that has some smaller, funnier kind of creatures. Now, if you are after that bird sounds, let me suggest you using operator. And again, it is very, very simple. Just be sure to crank up the core so you can use this kind of sound. So it's very, very high frequency. And use an LFO in noise mode. Add some amount because it is not too much. Okay, even more. Cool. And you can use your mode wheel, not your mode wheel, your pitch bend wheel to this can be great. And you can of course record this anytime. So let's go resample. Okay, again, duplicate the granulator and drop this in and basically do the same. And to make it a little more organic, add the chorus. Interesting sound. This may be good for example, interface sounds too, but for little birds and little creature kind of sounds, again, it is interesting. Okay, this is going to be fun. In this video, we are going to use granular effect again. So what I want to do is an alien talking kind of effect. So this can be very, very colorful. Like, you can do lots of things with that. But I want to show you one technique in this video that is going to blow your mind, I'm sure. So first I want to record a voice. Like you can say anything really. For example, I just recorded this I'm an alien. I'm an alien. I'm an alien. And we are going to use this in a Max for Live device that is called the Granulator 2. And this is a crazy good device for this kind of effects. So just simply drop it here and you can see it is really cool because you can I'm an alien go through the file and creating awesome supernatural sounds really.
An alien.
Okay, now what I want to do is narrow this range, so I just want to have a really short range from the grains. Okay, and if you click here, you can access the amplitude envelope, so I don't want to have this release. Okay, let's go back, and I want to add a spray, just a little. So the sound that it generates is more randomized than static and artificial. And because we are talking about alien talk effects, or that is what we are trying to do now, we don't want to go too artificial. So the spray, if you don't overdo it, can create a nice effect. Now, let me group this. And what I want to do is use a macro to play with the file position. And I have a MIDI keyboard in front of me that I'm going to use to tweak this knob. So it will be a lot easier for me to play with that. So this is already a really nice sound. But let's step it further. And what I want to add is a Serum FX. Because in Serum FX, we can use a very useful filter, and that is called the miscellaneous reverb filter. Very awesome stuff, but after an OTT. Okay, so again, what I want to do is tweak the cutoff and basically map it to the same macro, but I just want to decrease the range. So I don't want to go too high with the cutoff like this. I just want to move like between this position. So at around 0.12, from 0.12 to 0.13. Okay, so right now if I play with this stuff, how cool is that? It really sounds like an alien talking effect. And this is an evil alien, but if you want to do it like a little more friendlier alien, okay, this sounds really well. And what I love to do is coming from the Transformers movie, so this idea is used a lot there. So I just want to add an auto pan. Well, let's use this initialize preset, and I just want to add a tremolo effect. So let's pull back the phase and let's play with the waveforms and with the speed. So okay, this is obviously too much, so let's pull back the amount. How cool is that? Even if you want to step it forward, you can add again an Argot Lunar kind of thing. So people probably would not be able to recognize that this is a reverb filter, and this is always very important because you know you don't want to go very obvious, and this is the rule that helps you create interesting sound. Let's try without the auto pan. Okay, this is really interesting. Now, the coolest part in this is you can use, for example, neuro bass sounds or dubstep growl sounds to try different things out. Because when we talk about alien sounds, the only thing you need to keep in mind is that the articulation needs to be there. So for example, I have some nice growl sounds here. Okay, let's use this because this is more guttural and more vocally. And let's try to play with that. even without the serum effects. Let's see how it sounds. No, it's a lot better with the serum effects because it makes the sound a little more organic. You know, it washes it out. And if you are not satisfied with the vowels, let's use an LP filter and push it up the resonance in HP mode and map the filter to the macro. So obviously we will need to play around with the range because, well, oops, not on this, but on the filter, because we want to keep the vowels between, you know, an audible range. So for example, I think we don't need to go higher than 1K, 1.2K. Okay, let's see now how it sounds. Let's put it before serum effects. Maybe we will need more resonance. Okay, now this can be an interesting thing to play around and, you know, experiment with, but the best result always comes out from human voice because, you know, we are just tweaking and transforming human voice. Now the next step could be, if you click on the grain, you can access the FM. So you can play around with the FM that gives more overtones, gives more crunchy kind of effect. Let's play around with that too, like mapping it to macro 1, the frequency 2, and let's see what it comes out from this. How cool is that? It even has that very screechy, metallic, robotic kind of sound that, you know, you would not be able to do without this effect. So the Granulator 2 is, by the way, a free plugin. So if you have Ableton, you have everything to create this effect. But if you don't really like this wobbly effect, just disable the Argot Lunar. And of course, for more variations, you can use several macros for several types. For example, I would definitely put the FM and the frequency to a different macro, because right now when we get to this point, we only hear the screechy effect. But what if you want to hear it on this part of the sound? So it is up to you, really. It's not very complicated. And at the same time, it sounds wonderful. I love it. Okay, making zombie and other monster sounds is pretty easy because all you need to do is record a huge amount of like growls, screams, and every weird effect. It doesn't need too much acting skills, and, you know, just apply several granular effects, pitch down effects, and stuff like that. Especially if you had Dehumanizer, the job is really easy. So let me start with a very simple one, something like something like that. And, you know, you just need to click the complex, pull back a few semitones. It is already zombie-like. And if you want to step it forward, drop a vocoder, a noise, and pull back the driver, because obviously you don't want to fully like turn your sound into noise. Very good. And if you want to step it forward, just add the Ergot Lunar, you know, the granular effect, and tweak around with these settings. And as a next step, if you want, you can add multiband compression. Yeah, that will be fine. And basically that's it, you are done. Now I'm going to show you a different thing. And this is going to, again, kick your socks off, because, you know, you only need to record a few samples. You don't need to go really crazy with that. And with a pinch of creativity, you can go crazy with that. Okay, so for this cool stuff, I'm going to use granulator again. This is a really nice stuff to, you know, go back and forth, scan back and forth in a sample that you just created. Or you bought or you found on the internet, it doesn't really matter. Now I recorded a really nice zombie-like effect, something like this. Okay, let's drop it in here. And as previously, you know, just shrinken the grain, add some spray. This already sounds really zombie-ish. Pull back the release because I don't want to have some tail on the sound. Okay, and basically we are going to do the same again as previously. Let's map the file position to a macro. Very cool. And again, add serum effects, but this time we are not going to use the reverb filter, but another neat little filter here. And that is called miscellaneous formant. Okay. Now, if you click on this little arrow and the configure, whatever button you click on, it will appear here, and maybe the formant will be needed. Okay. Now let's map these to the macro also. And again, I'm going to use my MIDI keyboard. So now this is how it sounds. Okay, nice. But we don't stop here because I want to add an OTT. It will just bring everything together. Now the cool thing in this is you can, you know, create basically endless variation from this little short clip, especially if you go forward and add another effect. My favorite, the Argot Lunar thing. With a glissando, you know, this adds some pitch variation, so it's a vibrato kind of effect. Now the Argot Lunar adds some delay-ish, reverb-ish kind of effect, which can be cool, for example, if the zombies are in a distance. But if they are closer, just mute it. Okay, so this is the coolest thing in this because, you know, with regular methods, you need to record like hundreds of sounds. But with this method, it is very different. You just need this little rack and you can create whatever you want. And of course, you can drop in like any different sounds you want. But for this zombie effect, so cool. Okay, so step it forward. I'm going to, and I want to add a chorus effect. This always gives some really nice texture to the sound. And another cool trick I want to show you, because, you know, zombies are always very evil. And if you want to feel the evilness, if you want to add a touch of evilness to the sound, I suggest you to add another layer, but on a lower and at the same time on a higher level, on a higher pitch. So add 2 layers, on a higher and on a lower pitch. Now there is an effect for that. It is very simple to do, and it is called the grain delay. Now obviously we don't want to have very huge delay on the sound, so this is why I click on the time and pull back the delay time to 1 millisecond. And we don't want to hear only the pitch down effect, but both of them basically. So set it about 50 and you will see if it's enough, and pull back the pitch to about, I don't know, -6. Okay, and now I want to add an extra higher layer. But if I put another grain delay after this grain delay, it will affect the whole sound, you know, the normal, I mean the original sound and the pitch down effect. But obviously we don't want that. We just want to have 3 layers, a higher, a normal and a lower. So this is why I'm going to group this. So Control G, and I'm going to add another grain delay here. And this time I just want to leave 100% on it. So I'm just creating now the higher pitch. So just crank up the pitch to about, I don't know, like 6, and pull back the level here in the rack. Now, if this confuses you, let me fix the first rack or the first chain. Let's call this, I don't know, like higher. Let's call this lower, and, you know, pull back the drive at level to 100. And let's make a new chain, and this is going to be the original untouched. Okay, so from this point, you only need to do is use this slider to set the levels of the layers. And as a final touch, let me add an OTT, or we will see if a multi-band compression will be enough. So first let me try the multi-band compression. Yeah, I think the multi-band compression is more than enough. So crank it up, and as a final step, let's add a bit warmer saturation on soft clip. So this is going to act as a limiter also, and at the same time it adds some depth to it, some fatness to it. And if you want other articulations, just go into Serum FX and choose another filter type. So for example, go to Formant 2. How cool is this? Okay, let's talk about dragon sounds or even dinosaur sounds. Now, those sounds are mainly built up using animal recorded sounds. For example, like bear noises, bear growls, bear moans, or tigers, lions, or any very aggressive and huge animals, you know, that has some really deep and guttural sounds. Now, I made this sound here. So this is a really nice sound, and actually I layered up lots of things here. So when I make these kind of sounds, I have several types of sources that I like to use. For example, the first one, as I already told you, was animal sounds. Now, very different sounds, and the best thing you can do here is build up a huge library of different sounds that you can process later, okay? The second one I love to use is synthesized sounds. Now, I'm going to talk about this in the next section when we make robot sounds, especially the Dinobot sounds. And the third thing is to use Foley sounds that already has some vocally kind of tone, you know, some articulation or anything really. But before we jump into it, let me analyze this sound. So the first thing that I used here is I recorded lots of different animal sounds. And the first layer here, I mean, all of this sound in the group is recorded animal sounds. Okay, so I have a Bengal tiger kind of thing here. I have another layer, a little growl layer, and actually over-processed sound, but in the group and with all the other layers, it sounds well, I think. Very evil and very dragony kind of thing. I have a lower layer, a little growlier layer, and I have a very low subby kind of layer coming from operator, as you can see. Okay, so the process, I used transposition on basically all of them. Now on the first one, I transposed up, and I always use the complex pro or the complex mode. And the second layer is transposed down drastically, so originally it was like this. And let me show you without the processes. So this was the original sound. I stretched it a lot and transposed it down to -9 and added lots of different processes. So this is what I got from here. But this very first hit, this little tiny thing here, like an inhale of kind of growl, that makes the sound really, so for me, it sounds cool and very nice and evil. Okay, I have another layer. That basically just a simple growly kind of thing, transpose it down to almost 1 octave. So this is how it sounded originally. Okay, and one operator that basically just a sine wave with some FM, with another sine wave and with slight distortion, you know, in hard shaper mode on 12 decibel. And I added some slight reverb because this is not a sub, but this is more like a low layer for the whole sound, an auto filter and some gains to the end. Okay, now the process, let's talk about the process here. The first thing that I always love to add is an OTT, because when you transpose the sound a lot, you basically lose lots of siblings, lots of high and lots of top end, and an OTT always gives some really nice result and really nice process on the sound, because it will pull up and try to even the frequency ranges, the frequency bands, even on the top. And this is, I would say, very, very important. Now I like to use a vocoder to make the sound less furry and less distorted or less unnatural because of the transposition. And if you choose the modulator as a carrier, it generates, I don't know, like a really, really unique sound that I love, for example, because for me, it turns the sound into a little more organic than, very heavily processed. So let me show it with and without that. Okay, I like to add distortion to bring up the high end a lot more. But if you don't have trash through, the best that you can do is use an overdrive and just use this shape. So basically, this way you are distorting only the tops. As you can hear, it's already too much, so pull back the drive at. And after that, you need to EQ out those frequencies that you don't really like. So for example, at around 7K as I hear it. Yeah, 6-7K and add some more tops. Well, more like 5 and 6K. Okay, so this is the thing that I want to, and the frequency shifter is your best tool. Okay, so if you just use several hertz, it brings out those frequencies that turns into a little weird frequencies that can come really handy when you want to make these deep and evil sounds. So as you can hear, it is very time stretch and very artificial sounds, but with the frequency shifters, it's just crazy good. And some EQ modulation to bring out a little more vowels, basically. Okay, so this is the process on this growly kind of thing. So this is how I process these sounds, this is how I layer them. And there are several other things. So for example, the first thing that you want to add is a growly layer, then a top hiss kind of layer like a noise, an inhale or an exhale kind of sound. You can add the screechy layer that always makes the sound a lot more evil. And then you can add the very low layer, for example, not a sub, but a very deep and guttural bass sound that makes you perceive that we are dealing with a huge monster or a huge dragon here. So this is the purpose of the operator. Now, if you want to make it even better, you always want to start ordering the sounds. So for example, this is why this growly kind of thing here at the very beginning of the sound, because it starts with a growl like, and then comes the roar, the very aggressive roar. Ah. But at the beginning of the sound, here is this growly kind of thing that introduces the roar. This is how animal sounds build up really. They don't start with ah, they start with a introduction noise, an introduction aggressive kind of thing like something like that, and after the ah, the roar, we have some exhale kind of sound like something like that. So this is what I love to use. Another thing here, so this sound is, you may think that it is a recorded thing, but no, it is not recorded. It is a synthesized sound. I love to synthesize good sounds. We are going to talk about later in the robot section, but actually this is a Dinobot roar that I made. Now I already modified it. I just tweaked several things here in the aggressive distorted layer. I have a growly layer too. So this is the good thing in synthesizing sounds, because you can modify it and just tweak several parameters and it will sound so different. So I recorded this sound and start tweaking it here. I added another layer from the same sound, so these are the exact same sounds, and I added a vocoder on a noise mode, so this will act as an exhale kind of sound after the roar. So this is very important to order your sound and build up your sounds like this. And if you want, you can place a growl before the roar, as I stated before, to make it even better. But right now this is enough. So because I told you I like to use recorded sounds and synthesized sounds and even Foley sounds to make this kind of dragon sounds, this can be a good example how to build up those sounds. Okay, and as I told you, we have some Foley sounds too, so I recorded this screechy door screech kind of sound. It's very, very funny, and actually it is very handy at the same time. If I start transpose it down, it sounds really funny, and actually almost sounds like a flying dinosaur kind of sound. Especially if you start, tweaking it. For example, let me add a frequency shifter and make some pitch bend to it on the frequency. Just, slide touch to the end of the sound. This is not slide, this is too much. Yeah, this is very, very nice. Something like that. It's so cool to work with stuff like that. And if you want, you can add the vocoder, as I said before, but choose a modulator. Let's see what we get from that. Very interesting result. Play with the formants. Now we have some huge clipping here, but don't mind that, just put a saturator. This is already a very harsh sound, so I think that is not a problem to have some analog kind of clip here. Add another layer anytime, and choose the complex warping mode. Add the layer on a lot higher frequency. So this is an interesting thing to play around with, and especially if, with some creativity, you can turn any sound into a monster or a dragon sound, or just a layer for this kind of sounds. So be creative. I think this is a good thing. But remember, the best thing you can do here is to start experimenting with different recordings. Okay, so how to get really nice animal sounds, animal growls, wild animal things. Now, the first thing is obviously you can buy several libraries. I'm not sure if there are any out there, but if you are more creative, you can get very, very good resources for free. So for example, let's go to YouTube and type in like animal growls, and in the filter section, click on Creative Commons. So whatever shows up here, you can use them up for free. And for example, this leopard sound video is crazy good. Lots of very, very nice growls. And you know, you can browse through sounds. For example, this black bear sound is again very, very nice. Perfect for dragon sounds basically. And as you can see, it is Creative Commons, so you can use it up however you want. Now, if you are a little trickier, you can go and find some sounds without the Creative Commons thing. For example, this video is really nice again. So if you tweak these sounds enough, I'm sure that you will be fine. So this will be your own. Now, how to record these sounds? If you have a nice sound card or with a loopback function, you can record these sounds directly into your DAW like I'm doing it now with my voice. And you can do the same with the YouTube video basically. So how cool sounds these are. You can use them up instantly in your production, like dropping the transpose down. Layer them up with other sounds. Anyway, the second thing, if you don't have an expensive sound card or audio interface, what you can do is go to YouTube, copy the link, download it. There are several sites that offers you to download videos. And with Fubar 2000, you can simply drop in here the MP4, like this video, right click on it and convert to, click on output format, and use WAV, so wave format, and you can simply convert it into wave format. And after that, you will have tons of resources to play with. Now, to save you some time, I'm going to give you a few sounds that I ripped from these Creative Commons videos that you can use up in your production. Okay, so let's start with the simplest technique that you could ever make. And that is simply just lowering your voice. But I have a technique that I want to show you how to make it even more out of this world. So let me record a very, very simple phrase. For example, saying something like, I'm a dragon. Okay, I just recorded it as you saw it. And this is how it sounds now. I'm a dragon. Okay, now this sounds cool. And if you want to lower it in Ableton, you need to arm the warp button. And this is simply because if you don't do that, the length of the playback will change. And you don't want that, obviously. You just want to lower your voice. So just arm that warp button. But the problem here is that the beats mode is not the perfect algorithm for voices. It is suitable for beats or drums or any music related kind of thing. But for voices and instruments, choose the Complex Pro. Now with the Complex Pro, you have a formants slider. Pull it back, because if you don't do that, the algorithm tries to compensate the formants when you transpose up and down, and that would mean you will lose that very deep sound that we are after now really. So let me show it to you. If I just pull back the transpose and leave the formants on,
I'm a dragon.
it's just very weird because, you know, it tries to compensate with the formants. But if you pull it back,
I'm a dragon.
this is exactly what we are looking for. Now the envelope is not very important,
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
but leave it to the maximum if you can. Okay, so this is the simplest technique, but I want to show you a trick that will make your sound even better. So let's duplicate this channel. So if you, for example, working on a commercial project for a movie, for example, this is very simple because all you need to do is just, you know, duplicate the voiceover channels and drop it down one octave lower. So we are on minus 6 now. So drop it down to minus 18. That is one octave lower. Now this will sound very dumb, but what we want to add is an EQ, and we just want to leave the very lower harmonic, the very lowest harmonic. So let's choose the 4x low pass filter. And as you can hear, or if you don't hear, it's fine. But this very, very low sub frequency will add a very nice touch to the whole thing.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
Now it will need some compression. So what I want to do is add a glue compressor after the EQ8 and pull back the threshold, crank up the makeup, and activate the soft clip.
I'm a dragon.
And add the makeup to your taste. Just, you know, determine how loud you want the sub to be.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
Now, if your sub needs to be very, very loud, don't use the soft clip because you don't want to saturate that sub because it is a very, very sensible instrument. Instead, use a limiter, okay? So that won't crunch your sub. That is very important.
I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon.
Okay, so this was very, very simple. At the same time, it is very effective. This is how you add that very rumbling kind of effect to your voice. Okay, so before we jump into the next section where we are going to use vocoder heavily, I want to talk about the vocoder, so what it does and how it works. So obviously a vocoder is designed to resynthesize a vocal sound. I don't want to go into history, but this is the main purpose of that. So let's take a vocoder and put it on an audio track. Now, obviously you can put it on a MIDI track too, so you can use it after a synthesizer, because vocoder just basically uses two signals and create one signal at the end. So your hands are not locked in what order and on what sounds you want to use them, but the main purpose of that, as I said before, to use it on a vocal and resynthesize the sound, the vocal sound using a synthesizer. That this is what a vocoder does. So let me quickly record my vocals here, for example, saying, this is a test vocoder sound. Okay, so right now, because there is this vocoder on the channel, I won't hear anything. So we have this vocal, and on the next channel, this is a synth channel. This is a MIDI channel. I want to drop a synthesizer. For example, let's use the operator and just choose one square wave. That is the best signal for vocoder modulator. So once again, we take the vocals and we resynthesize it using the vocoder. And obviously the synthesizer sound should be operator. Now, what a vocoder does is splits up the frequency to different bands. For example, let's take only 4 bands now. As you can see, here are the bands. So vocoder uses band pass filters to split up the frequency spectrum into bands, and it puts an envelope follower after that. So if the lowest band moves like this, it will try to do the same thing on this synthesizer sound. So the vocoder will split up this square sound, this square waveform, the sound of this square waveform, using bandpass filters and apply the same movement on the lower band too. And the same on the second, on the third, and on the fourth. And obviously, if you use like 40 bands, you get a different sound. So this is why you will hear the synthesizer talk, because the volume of those bands will move the same way as the vocoder bands move. So this is very important to understand. But basically, if you go to the vocoder, let's stick with like 16 bands now. You need to know what's a carrier and what's a modulator. So the modulator is the vocal itself, which will modulate the synthesizer sound, because that is the goal, to make the synthesizer talk. So this is why the vocal is the modulator and the carrier is the synthesizer itself. So if you go to the vocoder carrier section, you can choose what is the source and what is the carrier sound that you want to apply and what you want to use here. So because I'm going to use an external sound, I'm going to click on external, and you can choose which track should the carrier sound come from. And that is going to be the operator here. Now, if you play it, we don't hear anything because the synthesizer is not playing. So let's add a MIDI. And I think the best thing is here, would be here, to add like a chord sound or something. And now I won't hear the synthesizer on itself and won't hear the vocal itself, but the combined version. So let's see how it sounds now. Now this is a little too loud, so let me pull back the level.
This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound.
Okay, so as you can hear, the synthesizer is talking. Now for easier and faster results, you can choose different carriers. So the Ableton vocoder has a built-in noise. So from this point, we won't use the operator, but only the built-in noise generator.
This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound.
So this is the same result that we get when we use a simple noise, white noise in operator. So this is the white noise we are generating with operator now. And if you combine it with the vocoder and the vocal, this is exactly the same. So this built-in noise carrier is the same if you take a synthesizer and just choose, white noise. Okay, and there is another very exciting feature here, is the modulator, which means it will modulate the same vocal sound as a carrier. So it will basically use itself, split the frequency spectrum into, in this example, 16 bands, and modulate itself. So this is how it sounds after that. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. So as you can hear, it didn't really change, but it still changed a little because of the overlapping frequency bands with the bandpass filters that you can change here with the bandwidth option. So right now they are 100% next each other. So in theory, they are not overlapping each other, but let's overlap them by cranking up the WB, so the bandwidth. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. Okay, and if we go lower than 100, we get a very interesting result. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. Okay, let me just quickly drop a limiter after that to avoid digital clipping. This is a test vocoder sound. And it has a pitch tracking option.
This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound.
Where the vocoder has a built-in synthesizer and the vocoder tries to track the pitch movement of my vocal, of my voice basically, and tries to apply it to this synthesizer. So again, it's a very interesting result. So you can use different waveforms.
This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound.
You can play around with the pitch.
This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound.
And you can set the highest frequency and the lowest frequency.
This is a test vocoder sound. 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 This is a test vocoder.
So again, it's very, very nice features. Now I don't want to make this lesson too long, so let's click back to external. And let me show you my favorite thing here is the format. Of course, I don't want to make a full overview of this vocoder because you can, read the manual anytime. But this is my favorite, the format.
This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound.
So this is my favorite thing because with the format you can make a chipmunk effect or a very deep sounding, deep voice male sound of this vocoded sound that can be very interesting, especially if you are after monster sound. So it can be a good idea to play around with this knob. And the next thing that I love to do is, just tweak the band's volume, so output volume. And this is something like you would, just use an EQ and EQ out the annoying frequencies.
This is a test vocoder sound. 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 This is a test vocoder sound.
So it's a very nice feature, enabled some vocoder to make it possible to play around with the band volumes. Okay, and you can set the range, the frequency range. So if you want, you can muffle out the full sound.
This is a test vocoder sound.
Or you can delete the lower frequencies completely. And the next important feature is the bands. So the higher the bands, the higher the number of the bands is, you get a lot cleaner sound.
This is a test vocoder sound.
But maybe sometimes you are after the more robotic sound. So let's go to, for example, 4. This is totally unrecognizable.
This is a test vocoder sound.
It's very dumb.
This is a test vocoder sound.
8 is a lot better, but 16 is, I would say, the best.
This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound.
Okay, and there is one more thing is worth mentioning, is to play around with the attack and the release time. So what it does is basically smoothens out these frequencies. So if you play around with these knobs, especially with the release, you can add more synthesizer volume, I would say, to the quieter parts. And if you play around with the attack, you can just kill the synthesized sound on the transients, maybe. So on the very beginning of every transient. So let me show you what it does in practice.
Test vocoder, test vocoder sound. 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 This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound.
Okay, so as it adds release to the whole sound, we get a lot longer robot sound.
This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test vocoder sound.
If you crank up the attack, after a while you get a very, very similar sound.
This is a test. This is a test. This is a test vocoder sound. This is a test.
But basically, you kill the transient with applying the attack. So again, you can play around with these settings. You get very, very interesting stuff. And especially if you drop the vocoder or another synthesizer sound that has lots of movement, for example, it can be a very interesting thing to play with. Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you a really creative way of using a vocoder. So what I want to do is open up a Simpler. And a Simpler is a really nice tool because there is a warp mode in that. So we can play the instrument or the sound that I'm importing into it on a keyboard and still it keeps its length. And the goal here is to use a vocoder to blend my voice with some animal roars, growls and stuff. So what I want to do is obviously use a vocoder on the other channel and use the carrier from the Simpler. So use external and Simpler. Now for the next step, let me record a few voices, a few roars and stuff, something like that. Monster. Okay, and let's drop some of the roar samples, animal samples that came with the Simple Monsters demo. So I use the demo for the Simple Monsters and the Dehumanizer too. So there are several stuff here, as you can see, lots of files. Very cool. So it is very nice to use them. So let's, for example, use this black leopard grunt roar kind of thing. Very nice stuff. So drop it into sampler, click on the warping mode and choose complex. We don't need a complex pro now. And with the classic mode, I just want to loop it, okay? So, and of course, pull back the release because I want the playback to stop when I pull up my fingers from the keyboard. Okay, so the goal is to not only play one note here, like but a lot. This is why I set up the voices to 32 well to the maximum. And honestly, I don't need a velocity, but need some volume. Okay, and the last step is drop a limiter after the simpler because I'm going to use like lots of voices, lots of notes, and I don't want to, you know, clip. Finally, let's play back my voice with the vocoder and play some random notes basically on the simpler. Wow, it sounds so cool. Okay, so let's record a MIDI. As to step this forward, we can use the Argot Lunar kind of thing. With using that, we will lose the very obvious vocoder kind of sound. And maybe add some glissando too. It sounds so cool on itself also, especially this monster thing. But with the vocoder, okay, this glissando is too much. Okay, let's resample that. So cool. I love this sound. So this is how you can use vocoder and some interesting and smart processing to create very colorful sound. Especially if you are working on a huge project, this stuff is very cool because, you know, you can create basically endless number of sounds. When you've done that, what I would do is just put a compression onto it. First, a multi-band compression and a glue compressor. And of course, if you want, you can combine this sound with the original one. So without the ergot lunar. So for example, this section for me it is very vocoderish. But here it's a lot better, so why not drop it up? Okay, so the last video for this section is going to be a hybrid video between these organic monstery dragony sounds and the robotic artificial sounds, because we are going to use Serum to make a sound that will almost be similar to a real dragon kind of thing. So this is how it sounds now. So this is cool because it really depends on the usage. So especially if you use with other layers, organic layers, it can sound like an organic, a real dragon, a real animal. But if you want, you can use it up as a robot or anything like that. So let me show you the sound on itself, because original, this is the source sound. Now, this was originally a new raw bass that I made for Loopmasters, as I believe. And it sounds really great. It's very simple because let me deactivate the filters and the effects to hear it. The pure wavetable on itself, the pure sound. So let me deactivate the warping mode. It's like a sine wave with a noise wave distorted together, added some unison and stuff. So this is the wavetable, but with added mirror. It brings up some vocally kind of element, and the filter, the band reject filter, helps to push it even forward. Okay, the hyper dimension and the chorus effect gives more voices to it. Slight distortion, slight phaser, slight band reject filter, and an OTT, and the delay to the end to add even more voices. So the process is very, very minimalistic. But when we go to this rack, how does it turn into a monster? So it is very simple. Actually, I use 2 layers, and the second layer is almost sounds like the original, but I added a grain delay and chopped off the sub because we don't need sub right now. So I'm not going to talk about it more because it is very, very simple. Now the second, the origin or the first layer, the original layer is the real thing. So what I did here is I use several tools that just pushes the transposition down. So I have this rack for the first step, and it has 2 layers or 2 instances. So basically what I wanted to do I just wanted to affect the higher band. So I didn't want to touch the lower band. So as you can see, I cut everything below, 300 Hertz, and I added a frequency shifter everything above. So everything above 300 Hertz is affected with the frequency shifter, where I push down the frequency to minus 800 Hertz. And the second layer is untouched, but I chopped off the very highs at around 1.7K. So this is basically what the rack does. So let me show it to you with and without. The effect is very, very slight, but let me show it to you without the other effects, because this was the starting point. It's very slight, but I added 2 instances of phasers that really makes a sound with huge feedbacks. Basically, I never use this huge feedback, so it's almost like on 1, which is really big. But for this particular sound, it just sounds really cool. So I added an overdrive to add back some high frequencies, especially because at the end with the grain delay, I pushed down the transposition to -4.5. So without the overdrive, it would sound very dull. And I added a chorus to add more voices, because without that it still sounds artificial. But with the chorus, it sounds really like organic. And an EQ8 to boost those frequencies that really makes a sound like a vowel. So this is why I boosted at around, well, at 1K and chopped back the very annoying 5K frequencies. And of course the very lows and the very highs to make it like not digital and not very artificial, but more organic. Of course, if you want, you can move this peak so it will sound like really a talking effect or something. But at 1K, it sounds really great, I believe. So this is the thing here. It's very simple, as you can hear. And if you layer it well with other sounds, it can sound really great. Okay, this can be cool. So let me add... well, we just type it in or we just play it in. Okay. How cool is this? So it's a really cool layer for a dragon sound, for example. And of course, if you want to tweak it, a robot dinosaur sound, you can play it higher. But it still sounds really cool for this type of stuff too. How cool is this? Okay, so here is that really nice dragon video. It's also a Creative Commons video, and we are going to remake some of the sounds, some of the dragon sounds from here. Okay, let's start with this section where the dragon blows fire. Now this section is a synthesizer kind of thing with an LE4, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. But this growl is a really complex kind of thing. And what I like to do is make a new audio track and just copy the section that I'm going to remake. And the point there is to, mute the video, mute the sound, but also have the video. So I'm going to mute this track, so the video will keep playing, but the sound will be muted. And this is the sound that I want to remake. Okay, so I dropped in those sounds that I'm going to give out for free because, I converted those Creative Commons video sound sources into WAV files, and you are going to use up as you want. So here we have black bear sounds, cobra, king cobra sounds, and this is a very interesting source because, a cobra, how could we use a cobra? But you will hear that it has really strange sounds. Leopard sounds with huge growls, lion roars, and even walrus sounds. And it is crazy again. Okay, so let's start with a cobra sound. So as you can hear, it has some very evil sounds. And we can use them up. For example, to that, when the dragon exhales the fire. I hit Ctrl+C and let me just, make new audio tracks and copy this stuff here. So obviously, I don't want to start the whole stuff from here, so I'm just fading it in. And maybe we can lengthen it if we click on the warping mode, click complex, and just stretch it a little. Not too much because we don't want to go crazy with that. You know, we don't want to hear the glitches of the time stretch algorithm. Okay, but this will be great for the exhale kind of thing. Now, the cool part in Ableton is we have an EQ8 where we can choose from several formats. For example, the vocal A kind of thing sounds really great, but we don't want to, you know, cut off the very highs. So just change to this EQ dot, also here. But I definitely want to tweak the very low end. So right now, this is how it sounds. Maybe we can turn it up by 3 semitones. Okay, and chop it off, I mean the very, very lows, but also at the same time boost it too. Okay, this is nice, and I think we are done here. Okay, so the next thing is going to be some really nice and deep and evil growl kind of thing. Let's go to the lion roars and let's browse through the sounds. I'm looking for a really aggressive growl. This can be nice too. Let's use this up. This is a nice starting point. Okay, so Control C. Let's make a new audio track and drop this roar here. And basically the only thing I want to do is just transpose it down to -3 semitones. Okay, so now this is what we get. Okay. Now, this is very weak on itself, as you can hear it. So let's find a new layer for that. And the Walrus has a very, very, like, I never thought that Walruses has this sound. So let's browse through the sound. Oops, like a fart noise. These are crazy animals, really. I'm very surprised. These are crazy sounds. Oops. Okay, so at the same time they can make very funny noises and very idiot sounds, but on the other hand they can be very scary. So let's use this sound up. Control C. Let's make a new audio track. And what I want to do is, okay, the warping mode is off, and drop it down to -9 semitones or something like that. Okay, very, very nice sound. Let me maybe just pull it back a little. Okay, very cool. And I missed actually one thing from the beginning, because this sound does not have that very aggressive start at the beginning of the sound. So for that I want to use another layer. So let's go to the leopard sounds. There it is. And let's find some aggressive, very aggressive roar kind of thing. Okay, this can be fine. And drop it somewhere here at the very, very beginning. Okay, I think this sounds nice. So I tweaked several stuff here. For example, I pulled back the Cobra sound to the very beginning. It sounds a lot better with that. and I lengthen the leopard sound, the leopard growl. And with the lion roar, I applied warping mode because I wanted to make it a little longer too. So this is all here now. I mean, on itself, it sounds great, but let's group them and apply several effects on the group itself. So what I want to do is take the grain delay. It is a really nice plugin, and we don't want to synchronize, pull back the delay and pull back the pitch on the whole thing to about -3 semitones. And let's add the multiband dynamics device with a multiband compression preset and the limiter to the end, so avoid clipping. So right now, this is what we get. Okay, and one more thing to start playing with the envelopes, because, you know, for example, this walrus sound is too long. I just wanted to have it at the very, very beginning of the thing. And also with the leopard sound and the lion roar. Okay, this is a nice thing. Now there are other very, very cool sounds here. It sounds like a moaning animal with another layer onto it. So let me try to remake that too. Okay, and let's find a moaning sound from our library. Okay, this will be nice, I think. We are going to need to adjust some pitch envelope to it or something like that. So let's drop it, for example, to the cobra thing. No. Oh, that will be fine. Okay. Let's drop down the transposition and add warping mode on complex mode. And what I want to do is, as I told you before, I just want to add a nice pitch drop to it. So click on this little icon here, clip transposition, very nice, cool. And let's find the envelope. Okay, something like that. And just drop a few semitones, not too much. Okay, sounds silly on itself, so find a layer for that with lots of top end, okay? I think the cobra is not the best choice for that. Okay, let's try this. I think it's not the best because I wanted to have a little metallic overtone to it. This is a little... It sounds like if it was distorted. Warping mode. Now we have this texture thing where we can play with the grain size. Hopefully that will help us to create a little metallic sound or a little more artificial. Okay, it's not the best, but I think we can use it up, especially if we EQ it a little, but let me try to find a new one instead. Yeah, maybe we can use this up. Now, I think I need to make a new audio track because what I want to do is not using transposition because I want it to, I just want to keep the very highs, and the frequency shifter is the best tool to do that. So temporarily, let's just mute this thing here and drop down the frequency on the leopard sound. Okay, let's see all together. This sounds cool. I mean, it's not totally the same that we made, that we had previously in the video, but I think it works like a moaning kind of dragon sound. Especially with this exhaling kind of noise at the end. I love it. Okay, so we have another sound. Something like that. Now this is very, very similar that we made previously here. So it starts with a rum, very aggressive roar, and at the end it turns into another kind of sound. I can clearly hear how the dude layered this thing up to, achieve this sound. This is a very different sound here. I'm not sure what this is. Maybe a horse or I don't know what this is, but this thing here is definitely some kind of lion or leopard or something like that. Okay, so we have this lion roar. So let's try this thing. I'm copying it here. And maybe this is not the best idea. Okay, no, I'm not going to do that because we don't have enough space for that. So let's go back again to, I don't know, like go to the leopard noises. Again, we need a very aggressive roar. Okay, this will be fine. So let's copy it. And we can drop it to the lion layer, or lion track, sorry. So something like that. Okay, so this is the part that I'm looking for. Cool. And let's drop it to the lion track. Cool, but we don't need this second half, only the first half. But what I want to do is again the same thing, complex, transpose down. Very cool. Let's find another layer, but this time, as I told you before, a little similar to that at the end. That sounds cool. I mean, this is not exactly what I'm looking for, but I think that would help. So let's drop it here to the same thing that we had previously for the noisy kind of thing, and put it right after the roar, okay? With some fade in effect. Maybe with some transposition. But this is too, the distance is too far, too big. That's cool. So this sounds like if they were one sound. Okay, let's go back again to, for example, to the bear. Okay, I think maybe this will be handy. So let me copy it again, go back. I mean, it is a little time consuming, but if you make your own library and put them into a sampler, the process will be a lot faster. I just want to show you how to process these sounds to build up your own stuff, how you arrange them to sound well. And I think this sounds well on itself. No, maybe a little lower. Let's drop down a little lower. Very cool. And I need one more layer. One more very aggressive, growly kind of layer. I think this will be good, but only the very few milliseconds. So let's go again to this section and put it right before the main growl or the main roar. This is crazy good. No. Okay, this little growl thing at the beginning can help. Ah, no. Okay, and with the extra grain delay thing. So we can play around with the wet because actually this time I like it a little, not very heavily transposed kind of thing. So let's pull back the mix to about 50%. Okay, this is fine, I love it. Maybe this cobra sound is a little too loud. But yeah, we are blowing out fire, so this is the thing. And there is a very, very aggressive growl here. Now this is a tricky one because you need very high quality growl sound that our Leopard video contains. And yeah, so this is a little tricky because this doesn't have any serious low end basically. So we somehow need to put that low end there. Okay, so this time let's use the Complex Pro and pull back the formants to half, well, to about 50%, because so this way we are keeping the evil transpose down effect and the siblings as well, so the top end. Okay, and now with an effect, an EQ. Let's boost those highs. But at the same time pull back the middle bass frequencies at around 200 Hertz. Okay, and let's try to play a little with the frequency shifter. I can't guarantee that this will sound well, but let's see. Okay, just the fine. Okay, at around 20 Hertz, like on the fine, it boosts some frequencies that I think it sounds better. The effect is very slight, but I kind of like it. And if you want to make it even deeper, you can try to experiment with phaser. And some saturator. Okay, so this was it. I hope you enjoyed it, and in the next section we are going to make really nice robot sounds.